Howdy, Jason Lewis here, and this is my 2013 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And today's video is going to be the first off-road equipment upgrade to this thing. We're going to be taking off this stock bumper, and we're going to be throwing on this WARN rock crawler bumper and installing a WARN Zeon 10S winch. Now, step one is to get the old junk off, and let's do that. And while we do that, I'm going to tell you why this is the first off-road upgrade. Okay, so first up is to get rid of all of the skid plates. Now I call them that because they're in the place of where a skid plate would go, but as you can hear and see, these are plastics. They don't really actually offer any plate or protection at all. And I actually ordered the skid plate with the WARN kit, so I'll be putting all that stuff on. On the top here, there's a couple of Phillips head screws. We'll pull those out, and then on the bottom, there's just some plastic tabs, and we'll pull those out with these pliers and get this thing off here and get going. Those come right out. And there's two more right behind here. Uno. Goes. Okay, skid plate off. So this will give you a quick idea of what we're doing there. You just use your little priers here, get underneath there, and then just pry that out. This little thing just pops out, and you throw them away. Now would be a good time to unplug your fog lamps. Okay, and so what you want to do is just cut those little wire ties and just get your loom that goes from one end of the fog lamps to the other loose. So that way when you pull this bumper off, the lights will go with it and you won't damage anything. No big deal. So now you just have the 4 bolts on either side. They're 18 millimeter, and I'm going to use this impact where I can reach and buzz those off. I'm going to do these outside ones first, since those are the easiest ones to reach. And even though this vehicle is only 3 years old, quite a bit of rust and stuff on those, so a little quick tip would be to just throw a little WD-40 on those the day before you go to do this, and those came right off there. Now, to explain why I'm doing this as my first off-road hardware upgrade, it actually was a funny story because, as some of you may know, I work on a web show called Dirt Every Day on the Motor Trend YouTube channel, and my job is just as a camera guy to follow this guy Fred Williams around in the mountains and all of his adventures. And when I asked him what the first upgrade I should do to this thing, I had all kinds of ideas in my head of like, I want to put lift kit, bigger tires, I'm gonna just go crazy, and this is, you know, they make all these parts, and Fred looked at me, didn't even hesitate, and said, stop all that nonsense, go get a bumper and a WARN winch. Not anything else. He said, get a WARN winch and a heavy duty bumper. So, and I kind of wondered why, with all the other glorious things to get for these things. And he said, look, the thing's really capable. You don't need all of that stuff right away. And because of my schedule, I tend to go off-roading by myself a lot, and recovery is a big deal. So the winch is the single most important thing to get yourself out of a sticky situation. So I went to the WARN website. I ordered what they call the rock crawler, which is the kind of a full-length heavy-duty bumper. And that's the last bolt. For the stock bumper, you want to just, before you rip it off of here, just make sure that everything clears, and it does. And that's it. But before we get rid of this thing, you want to take the stock fog lights or driving lights out of these things. And it's just these 4 Phillips here. And then we'll modify these brackets, get these in the new bumper. Let's get that bumper on here. So far, very good. All right, so now that we take our fog lamps or driving lamps out of the stock bumper, you want to just clearance these things out you're gonna run 1/4-20 hardware now. So you're just gonna clearance these out. And you wanna make sure that you get these set up correctly so you can adjust them. There is an adjustment screw at the bottom of these things. So since these are the mounting brackets that will go into the bottom of the bumper, they'll sit like that in the bottom of the bumper facing out. So you want to make sure that you can get to those from underneath the car. So you put them like thus. And you use the 1/4-20 hardware that came with the kit, washer, nylock, and we'll do that times 8. You don't want to over tighten this stuff. These are just very light plastic lights. All right. Let's get these installed in the bumper, and then the bumper onto the front of the Jeep. Simply attach the mounting brackets to the bumper and snug them down. Now, back to the Jeep. So for the inside frame rail brackets that we got to add on, they make this little nut with a welded on blind lock on here. Get that fed up in behind there. Run your bracket in and run your bolt through that. Get that started. And then you get that tentatively into place. And then now we move to the driver's side frame rail. Unless you have a 2012 JK, this vacuum canister will need to be adjusted. But don't worry, this is not a big deal. Just remove the vacuum canister to get it out of the way for now. Cut the forward edge of the stock mounting bracket off of the frame rail and finish it off nicely. Then clearance out this lower frame hole and touch up any bare metal with some black paint. Once the paint is dry, rotate the vacuum can and reattach it. You will add a new bracket to pick up the other end once the rock crawler bumper is installed. Finally, just install the new inside bumper support on the driver's side and you're ready to heave the whole assembly into place. All right, now it's time to put the bumper on. Now I'm just going to do this by myself. It's not that difficult. The bumper's pretty heavy. I mean, this is all very thick, heavy gauge material. You just want to get it lined up. Once you get the holes lined up left, right, get height. And that's it. Bumper's up. Let's get some nuts on the back of that thing to secure it in place. Simple as that. Then install the bolts through the inner frame mounts on each side and work your way around tightening as you go. Okay, so the 7/16 bolts to the frame horns get torqued to 50 foot-pounds. So we'll do that. All right, since the weather decided to cooperate, I decided to move this party out here to the backyard. Now, bumper's on, it's time to install the winch. Now the winch is actually one of the easier parts of the install. You have your winch plate that you're gonna sandwich between the winch and the bumper. So you just throw that on there. Here's a cool little tip for when you get your winch in place on the sandwich plate. Things will slide around a little bit, so if you just put the winch bolts in like that, it'll help keep everything situated as you get the winch in place. And then just take one at a time out and get them started. Now it's time to install the fair lead. And that is this beautiful piece right here. Once the winch is in place, it's time to run the wires. Now I just routed the wires underneath the grill, over the cross frame member, and then once I found the sweet spot of where I wanted it to come up, here's a little easy tip for you. Just throw a wire, I just used a coat hanger, down that sweet spot, and then pull your cable up. Securing the wires so they don't hit moving parts or get cut by rubbing sharp edges is important. I go a little overboard with wire protection, but that's just how I roll. With that done, it's time to add more glory to the front of this. I ordered the grill guard and the lower blocker bar skid plate, which is very heavy duty and just bolts right up. Now for the final part of the install. Use a zip tie on the end of the synthetic rope and feed that through the spool. I rotated the spool forward so I could get a strong pull on it and wiggled it through. Now put the wedge into the loop and pull it tight. We're going to go ahead and hook up the battery for the first time since we've had this thing installed, and we'll run through. No, just kidding. So I'm gonna go get the controller, plug it in, and start winching. And that plugs in right here. That's it. Here's where, if you accidentally suck your fingers in that, you're gonna just rip them right off. So it's time to really pay attention. The install was pretty fun. Now we gotta spool this thing up, go and engage the clutch, go to the end of my remote cable, put tension on the cord here, and it's very important that this first layer be fairly tight, and I'm gonna pulse this. There are several techniques on how to get the thicker red section of the rope properly tightened on the drum. I'm just getting it on for now with hand tension. And then once you get close, you never want to have your hands hooked, so that's what you grab this handy dandy strap for, so that way you can let go when you need to. One other thing is this little shield here. You got to slip that on before you actually thread the rope into the spool. Don't forget to do that, because that would be a bummer to have to take this thing all off and slide that back down the rope, because it doesn't go on from this end. So grab a hold here, keep some tension. All right, so check out the winch kit that I got with this thing. I kind of went nuts on the WARN website just because there's so much cool stuff there for these things, and you know, I kind of just like it all matching right now. I'm kind of new to the whole upgrade thing, but I'm really thrilled so far. Now this pack here has a snatch block, a tree saver, and a toe strap, and a couple of D-rings, and these gloves. So what I'm gonna do for now is just take one of the D-rings, feed it through here. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to get a few more of these things for actual wheeling so I could use some of these accessories, but for now I'm gonna pulse this back out. Remember, when you're close to the winch, never have your fingers hooked in where you can't get out. And we'll come on over, hook this to, let's see, what would be cool looking? Yeah, I guess we'll hook it to that. Pull it tight. There you go. Doesn't have to be monster tight, just tight enough so it doesn't rattle. And there you go. Install is done. Now stay tuned for a future video where I actually go out and do a couple of demonstrations and I learn how to use this thing. So until next time, enjoy your drive, and we'll see you out on the trail.